In the 2022 NFL Draft, one quarterback went 262nd out of 262 picks. He was literally the last player selected. Given a nickname designed to mock him, Mr. Irrelevant. 3 years later, he signed a contract worth $265 million. His name is Brock Purdy, and his story reveals the one draft stat that almost every NFL team ignores. Now, before you say, that's just one lucky story, one outlier, one in a million, stay with me, because Purdy isn't the point, he's the illustration. The point is the concept behind him, a concept that the data has been proving for decades, that the most successful front offices in the NFL quietly understand, and that gets almost no attention on draft night. It's called surplus value, and once you understand it, you'll never watch the draft the same way again. Every April, the NFL draft is covered like a horse race. Who went first? Who fell? Which team won the night? Which GM is a genius? And almost all of that conversation focuses on one thing, the picks themselves. Which player went where? But the conversation almost never asks the more important question. Not just who did you pick, but how much value did you get relative to what you paid? Because in the NFL, every pick comes with a cost. And the relationship between that cost and the player's actual production is the real story of the draft. That relationship has a name. It's called surplus value. And it's the one draft stat that actually matters. Surplus value is simple to understand. When a team drafts a player, they're committing to a rookie contract, a fixed salary determined by where they were picked. First-round picks earn significantly more than later-round picks. The number one overall pick earns roughly 3 to 4 times more than the first pick of the second round. Surplus value is the gap between what a player earns on that rookie contract and what he actually produces. If a player produces like a top 10 player but was drafted in the third round and earns a third round salary, the surplus value is enormous. The team got an elite performer at a fraction of the cost. If a player was drafted in the top 5, earns a top 5 salary, but performs like an average starter, the surplus value is negative. The team overpaid. The number one overall pick earns roughly 3 to 4 times more than the first pick of the second round. Yet the performance gap doesn't justify that cost difference. That's the core insight. The salary scale is steep at the top. The performance curve is not. And that gap between cost and production is where smart teams make their money. Here's something that sounds counterintuitive. The teams that pick at the very top of the draft, the ones with the worst records, the ones who are supposedly getting the best players, often get the worst value. This has a name in sports economics. It's called the loser's curse. Research into NFL draft pick valuation found that expected surplus value actually peaks in the middle of the first round, not at the top. Later first round picks provide more value on average than top picks relative to their cost. Think about why that is. The number one pick almost always goes to a quarterback, and as we covered in video 3, quarterback is the highest bust rate position in the first round. You're paying top of the scale money for a player at the position most likely to disappoint. Meanwhile, a team picking at 20 or 25 is paying significantly less, has a wider range of positions to choose from, and is selecting players whose salary doesn't yet reflect their ceiling. One major study found that the final pick of the first round holds a value closer to 56% of the first pick's worth. Yet the traditional draft value chart, used by most NFL teams for decades, valued it at just 20%. Teams have been systematically undervaluing picks in the back half of the first round and beyond for decades, and research suggests late round picks are undervalued by as much as 30 times what traditional models project. The picks everyone ignores on draft night are often worth far more than anyone realizes. So where does the best surplus value in the draft actually live? The data consistently points to one answer: round 2. Round 2 hits what analysts describe as the Goldilocks zone. Players are still high-quality prospects, many considered borderline first-round talent, but their contracts are team-friendly enough to deliver exceptional value, and the numbers back this up. Interior offensive linemen, guards and centres are what one major analysis called draft day gold. No position more consistently outperforms expectations in both rounds 1 and 2. They're not glamorous, they don't make highlight reels, but they provide elite surplus value because teams consistently underpay for them relative to their impact. Running backs tell the opposite story. Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley and Saquon Barkley all posted negative value scores during their rookie contracts, despite being elite players. Their rookie salaries as top 10 picks were so high that even dominant production couldn't justify the cost. Read that again. Elite players, negative surplus value, because the cost of drafting them that high outweighed even their exceptional production. This is why smart teams have largely stopped spending first-round picks on running backs. Not because the players aren't good, because the value equation doesn't work. Which brings us back to Brock Purdy. The San Francisco 49ers selected Purdy with the final pick, 262nd overall, of the 2022 NFL Draft, making him that year's Mr. Irrelevant. The cost of that pick? Essentially nothing. A 7th round rookie minimum salary. What he produced? Winning all 5 regular season games he started, Purdy played a key role in the 49ers securing a division title and an NFC Championship game appearance in his rookie year. In 2023, he led them to a repeat division title and a Super Bowl appearance, finishing 4th in MVP voting and earning his first Pro Bowl selection. The surplus value of that pick is almost incalculable. An MVP caliber quarterback on a minimum salary. Now, some will say this proves nothing, that Purdy was a lucky outlier, that you can't plan to find your franchise quarterback in the 7th round. And that's fair, you can't. But here's what the Purdy story actually proves, and it's not about luck. The 49ers were able to deploy Purdy and succeed because of everything they had built around him. Kyle Shanahan's offensive system, Christian McCaffrey, a deep receiving core, a strong offensive line, a complete defense. The roster was so well constructed, so loaded with surplus value at every other position, that when an elite quarterback fell into their lap for free, they had the infrastructure to immediately win with him. Contrast that with the teams that spent top 5 picks on quarterbacks, neglected the rest of the roster, and watched those quarterbacks struggle behind a thin offensive line with no weapons around them. The lesson isn't draft your quarterback in round 7. The lesson is build so much surplus value everywhere else that when you do find your quarterback, wherever he comes from, you're ready. The franchises that have sustained the most success in recent NFL history share one thing in common. They are relentless accumulators of surplus value. The Baltimore Ravens, under general manager Eric DeCosta, consistently trade down, collect extra picks, and find starters in rounds 3, 4 and 5 that other teams overlooked. Their roster depth is the envy of the league. The Kansas City Chiefs, before their recent struggles, built an extraordinarily deep roster by maximising value at every position. Patrick Mahomes was a first-round pick, but the picks around him were not. Travis Kelce was a third-round pick. Tyreek Hill was a fifth-round pick. The Green Bay Packers have built one of the best receiving corps in the NFL, with 0 first-round picks at the position. 0. Their strategy is simple. Find value where others aren't looking. The philosophy is straightforward. NFL teams undervalue later round picks and overvalue first round picks. Having more lottery tickets means more chances to find the player who changes everything. More picks, more chances, more surplus value. It's not complicated, but it requires resisting the temptation of the big name, the exciting trade, the dramatic move up the board. Now look at the opposite end of the spectrum. The teams that consistently trade up, spend multiple picks for one player, and invest heavily in positions with poor surplus value. The Cleveland Browns traded 3 first-round picks and 3 other picks to move up for Deshaun Watson, who then served an 11-game suspension and has since suffered 2 serious injuries. The cost of that trade in surplus value terms is devastating. Not just the money, the picks, the players who could have been drafted with those picks, the roster depth that was sacrificed. The New York Jets have spent years trading up, reaching for quarterbacks, and neglecting the infrastructure around them. The result is one of the least enviable draft records in the league over the past decade. These aren't bad organisations run by incompetent people. They're organisations that prioritise the exciting move over the value move, and the data consistently punishes that approach. So this Thursday, when the 2026 NFL Draft kicks off in Pittsburgh, here's what to actually watch. Don't ask which team got the most exciting player. Ask which team got the most value. When a team trades up, calculate the cost. How many picks did they give away? What was the historical value of those picks? Is the player they're moving up for worth that cost? Or are they paying excitement tax? When a team trades down and collects extra picks, don't call it a boring draft. Call it exactly what it is, a team building surplus value. Those are the moves that win championships 3 years from now, not 3 days from now. Watch where the interior offensive linemen go. Watch which teams spend second and third round picks on positions that other teams draft in round 1. Those are the teams building the quiet, sustainable advantage that the data rewards. And when the last pick is announced on Saturday, remember that in 2022, pick number 262 became one of the most valuable players in the entire league. The draft is not just about talent, it's about value. And value is everywhere, if you know where to look. This is the concept that separates the franchises that build dynasties from the ones that rebuild in circles. Not who you pick, what you paid for them relative to what they give you. Surplus value. The one draft stat that actually matters. If this is the kind of analysis you want, the numbers behind the decisions, the data behind the narratives, subscribe to the NFL Lens. And if there's a team you want us to run the draft lens over, drop it in the comments. The 2026 draft starts Thursday. We'll be watching. See you there.